Well, hello, slingers. Welcome back to another Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you're here. You're going to be glad you're here when you hear from today's guest, a new friend of mine who is going to talk about his book and more. Can't wait for you to hear that one, so stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tumlinson, the Wordslinger. I'm happy to have you here. I'm always happy to have you here. I'm always glad when you drop by. I set aside time every week just for you. So, thank you for showing up. Coming in, this is the first episode after the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States. I hope you had a good one. If you're one of my listeners outside of the U.S., I hope you had a good day. Thanksgiving is such an interesting holiday because it's all about the food. It's all about getting together with family. You know, all these debates every year about should you talk about politics? Should you talk about religion? Should you talk about whatever, your surgeries, I find them kind of amusing that these are even a thing, because of course you're going to talk about all that stuff, right? This is family. It's been interesting to watch, though, as some family have decided to boycott the whole process, boycott having dinners and conversations that make them uncomfortable. I understand that. I understand where that's coming from. It's hard to blame them, but it also seems kind of petty to me, so... but that's me. That's my my somewhat conservative roots showing, I guess. But I think family is supposed to be there for you even when they don't agree with you. That's my take. But speaking of religion, now my guest today, he wrote a book that is currently sorry about that noise. Currently charting #1 in religious persecution, even though that's not technically what the book was about, but. He's not a first-time author, but he is a first-time novelist. And, I actually had the pleasure and the blessing and the benefit of helping out a little with this book, mostly just kind of talking him through some things, making him feel comfortable about this aspect of it or that aspect of it, leveraging the things I've learned from my experience in the industry. And I helped with layout, but that really was more vellum than me. So he put a nice little nod to me in the book about that, a little acknowledgement in the book about that. But I really can't take much credit for it because I just use vellum. So and it is gorgeous and beautiful. And vellum, if you're watching, the two Brads, always open for an ad spot, man. So anyway. This conversation is meaningful to me because Dave's a new friend of mine. I reached out to him via his YouTube channel, which is very popular. You'll find a link to that in the show notes for sure, so make sure you check that out. You'll also find a link to his book in the show notes. You should buy a copy. It's fascinating because it's a futuristic noir, which you don't see very often. So I'm intrigued. I didn't get my physical copy in time to present it on the show, unfortunately. But I did, I even though I have the book in its digital form, because of helping him out, I went ahead and ordered a copy. Just because, you got to support fellow authors. That's the way I feel about it. Now, don't come flooding me asking me to buy your books. I buy as many as I can each year. But anyway, enough about all this. We need to get into this interview. I'm real thrilled to have this and present this for you. Make sure you stick around at the end of the show for a note at the end. That's where we really get to do our bonding. So thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you on the other side. Well, I am actually quite thrilled. I'm kind of excited about this chat. I've been looking forward to it ever since I started talking to my new friend here. We're talking to Dave Cullen from the Dave Cullen Show on YouTube. So he's a YouTuber. He's a film critic, and most recently, actually, you've done this before, but most recently, you're a novelist. You've been an author before. but now you're a novelist. But welcome to the fold, my friend, and welcome to the Wordslinger podcast.
Kevin, thank you very much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. It's been a fantastic experience getting to know you and being able to call you a friend and for everything you've done for people who don't know. You actually did the wonderful interior design work on this book as well as you gave an initial design draft for the cover. So thank you very much for all that and for your patience every time I made a change.
I
People who
expect there'll
don't
be
know,
more.
for people who don't know, Kevin has unlimited patience, it seems. Every time I made a change, he'd update the file for the interior design. So thank you. And there was a lot of changes.
Yeah, well, that's going to come as a big surprise to my wife that I had patience in anything. So keeping that recording. But I can't take much credit, man, because Vellum did all the hard work of the layout. So that made it easy.
I have to say, I was actually, looking at it now and it looks wonderful, but I was very nearly just gonna just do it in pages. It was just
Yeah.
like word and it would have looked awful. So, I'm very,
It's
very,
so, when I first published, my first self-published book was a book called Citadel First Colony. I did the layout and everything in Microsoft Word, and it was terrible. I mean, it was just absolutely awful, but it was, the best I could manage at the time. And then I invested in like Adobe InDesign and other things. And so I'm real grateful for this current era where, you know, things like Vellum have come along to make that a little easier.
yeah, like, it's amazing. The tools are there. All these services are there. I mean, we're gonna probably talk about some of that, but it's had a huge influence on, I'm sure, the traditional publishing houses too, because they see the competition from the indie guys who are actually finding ways to maybe innovate in some respects faster and quicker, than the traditional guys. So
Yeah.
there's just it's almost getting to a point where even if you have a small budget, there's just no excuse for your book not looking half decent, right? It just shouldn't look terrible. Like there's just so many great design places, there's so many tools that can make the book externally and internally look good. So yeah, it makes such a huge difference, of course.
Well, one of the things I know from behind the scenes on all this was how much of a challenge you had in the cover. Now, I want to talk about the book proper. We'll talk about that, but can you run us through? Because I was there for the entire unfolding drama of getting this cover done.
Yeah, well, I had it's funny because you can have an idea in your head that that's gonna look really good, and then someone
Yeah,
actually makes it, and you go, oh yeah, I'm not a design person, so I'd love to have been able to have these skills. Um, but I wanted, the basics are there, which is that, it's I'm very happy with it, how it
yeah,
turned out. And for full disclosure, I used a company called Mibble Art for this. Um, and the typeface is great. It was supposed to be a guy running towards what is a portal in the shape of a Christian cross, because it's Christian science fiction, which is an interesting genre by itself, with Las Vegas in the background. And they did something similar on the back, but they did a really good job, and the typeface is great. Um, and so I got what I wanted. But in the beginning, I did go to one designer, and I made the mistake. See, when I wrote that book 10 years ago, Living Off YouTube, it was a guidebook on how to build your YouTube channel. I found it was a very different time. Create
yeah,
Space had just sort of ended, and uh, you know, finding a lot of the tools that we take for granted, a lot of the services and websites and everything for self-publishing just weren't there, and so I found someone online, a nice lady, and she did the cover. And I just stupidly kind of did the same thing again. And I went online and I found some random guy's website and I liked some of his stuff that was there and in his covers. And I went with him and it was just awful. I mean, I would have named the guy, like, but it was just uh every instruction that I would give, he just didn't want to do it. And so I look, after the first draft that he gave me was not good. So I ended up going with Mibble Art. But having said that, that became a drama in itself, because as good as their stuff was that I'd seen, um, they were. they weren't the easiest to work with either because you're doing everything through email. And one thing I've learned in this is if I ever, doing another cover design with someone again, I definitely want to have a
Yeah.
face to face and speak to somebody casually about things. And uh, as well as that, the English wasn't always great with Mibble art, and there was a lot of there's kind of so you communicate some things and not everything was executed from draft to draft. As well as that, they took too long. And I did
Yeah.
complain a couple of times and they did apologize twice and said, look, really sorry. This isn't up to our usual standard in terms of, customer care or whatever. So it was a weird thing because I thought of all, I know I just talked about how there's great services and great designers out there, but I was very unlucky. And look, don't get me wrong, I probably would use Mibble art again if it was like an off-the-shelf pre-made cover design.
Yeah.
But in terms of, and I know most people have great experiences with them, by the way, and I have no doubt that that's true. But I think I was just getting this across the line took a little bit longer than it should have done, because it was a full illustration from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't like they were using existing assets. They had to actually draw the whole thing, and so that took a little bit longer. But yeah, we got there in the end. But it was, yeah, I thought of all the things that I thought would be a challenge, I thought it would just be my writing. I didn't think it would be third part.
Right. The last part of the book didn't
Yes.
didn't kind of come across as being the hardest part. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think my experience with companies like that, resources like that, is like if you are picking the pre-made cover, and especially if they have an option for you to say, look, could you modify this or tweak that? That tends to go better. I think it's because they have more time. Like, the people who created that, they're just, or maybe it's more that they have more latitude because, they created all those covers to attract people like you to the service. So they took their time with it. They perfected things. They did it, and it was coming out of their heads. They didn't have any other clients to answer to. So I think that's why I would use something like that. But since you were starting from scratch, like I'd go with like a one-on-one creator, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, one of the things is I do have a design ideas for covers, but a part of me would also likes the idea of just letting loose and saying, look, here's what the book is about. Here's the
Yeah.
themes, here's the characters. Can you just come up with something? And this is what the genre, this is what the feel and the vibe that I want to communicate. And I think that if you've got a really talented artist who believes in the project and believes in the author and the message of it, that's also a great way to go, and that might be something I'll experiment with in the future.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the book itself though, because I mean, you've got this like cross-shaped portal on the cover and all of that. So what's the let's get the premise. Because
Yeah,
you've done
yeah,
something interesting, by the way, which is I referred to it as a futuristic noir. Would you say that's in the ballpark? That's what it feels like to me,
well,
like a
yeah.
noir
It's
novel.
it's in. Funnily enough, it's actually. I think it's the last time I checked. It's number 49 in or number 41. I think it was in hard-boiled detective mystery in that category on Amazon
Wow.
seller. So that for the time being, for the
Yeah.
next. Um, Yeah, so the idea came to me in 2019. It was one of those situations where, and you only have these situations every maybe 10 times your whole life, where an idea just comes to you fully formed. It was just one
Right.
morning, and I liked it so much. I liked where my imagination was going that I just took out the microphone and recorded 2 or 3 minutes of what was could just, coming out of
Yeah.
my head. And when I listened back to it recently, that's 5 years ago. Um, it's pretty close. It wasn't really a detective story at that point, but the basic story of the Jesus story arc and the AI component to it, all of that was in there, and much of the ending was in there. The original ending was more open-ended and it wasn't as decisive. It was more left open to the main characters, uh, left open for them to decide what had really what was really going on, and therefore up to the reader to decide if, if you're a person of faith, then this really happened. If you're not, then maybe there's some sort of scientific or logical explanation for everything. And as I don't want to give too much away, but um, so Deus V Machina is the title is obviously a play on Deus Ex Machina, which we all
Yeah.
know is a plot device which is used quite often in fiction for, God in the machine. And it sort of gained, I suppose, recognition around the time of Shakespeare, where there were lesser quality authors or writers of stage plays that were they'd back themselves into a corner and God would come in and save the day. So that was Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
So Deus v Machina is God versus the machine, and it is ostensibly a battle between um, man's technological or genuine technocratic machine and spirituality. So very much between skepticism and faith. And we have a character who is a detective, Cody Stockton, who fought in a war against AI some time ago, and man won, but at a great cost. And he's become an atheist. He is a private investigator, and he's investigating the death of a man who works as an engineer for a large telecoms company. And basically, long story short, he discovers pretty quickly that death was not an accident; it was a murder. And as this is a common trope in this kind of genre, it becomes apparent that this murder is actually part of a wider conspiracy, which plays against the backdrop of two major events that initially seem unconnected, which is one, that a major AI is about to be activated to run all of man's affairs, and governments of the world have agreed upon this, and humanity is protesting against it. And the second story, the second major event happening is that a man named Jesus Christ has just returned to the earth, and he's performing miracles all over the world. He seems to be able to pop up anywhere he likes, and so he's garnering great interest by the media, and he's denouncing AI and wants the system shut down. So we have this collision between the technological and the spiritual, which is one of the themes of the book. And so our main character, Cody Stockton, has to go on an adventure. There's action, there's a bit of romance in there and everything, and there's some twists as well. But he ultimately has to go on a personal journey of either self-discovery or discovering his faith or lack thereof, and what he chooses to believe. So I hope that gives people an overview, sort of high level, as what the book is about. There's a lot more to it, but yeah, it's 57,000 words, about 20 chapters, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's something to enjoy over Christmas. And I hadn't really planned on it being out for Christmas, but it's about Jesus Christ, and we're coming
Good
up on.
time. Yeah, that's a good time to come. And you've left out that it's number one in religious intolerance and persecution
Which
on
is not actually
Amazon.
a genre I selected on Amazon, but hey, every win.
Here's what I'm thinking. I think that Amazon has shifted some things around, and now it's letting AI pick some of these other categories. Because you used to be able to influence what category it showed up in with your keywords, things like that, and that they've kind of tapered that off. And so now I think that their AI is selecting that. So it read your book and said, "This is religious intolerance and and persecution."
Well, yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing. I would have thought that it was doing that at maybe if it was doing that at the level of the ebook,
Yeah.
but I guess it's the same file that you're
Well,
using.
since
Basically.
it's tied together, yeah. So it just grouped it together. It's looking
Wow.
good though. It's good to have that number one, whatever the category, it's
No
good
matter
to
what.
have that. Yeah.
If it had been something really obscure, like there is a cat in the book, if they had to throw it in there to like animals or something or whatever.
It's currently number 56 on religious cats as a category.
On
Uh
pet grooming. Yeah.
so now you have a subtitle on this that implies, because it's a Cody Stockton mystery. Does that mean you're already planning to do more books as
Yeah,
part of
I
a
have
series?
the next one. So there's a couple of books that I need to get out of the way first, but I'm kind of looking past them a little bit. I know I shouldn't just focus heavily on and completely on one at a time, but I really am excited about the sequels. There will
Yeah.
be more than one, and I'm looking at right now. I have a pretty concrete plan for an immediate sequel, which won't be God related, incidentally. It will be a sci-fi conspiracy, another conspiracy, global conspiracy that our main character has to unravel. And all I can say is that the story will feel very familiar to people in terms of maybe some major events that have taken place IRL, but no one
Hmm.
has ever told such a satirical political story in this particular way before. So it will be very original in that capacity. So um yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing that, but that probably won't be until I'd imagine, given how I've got a full-time job in addition to writing, probably looking at 2026, I'd say.
Yeah. 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 Uh, well, you're a busy guy. I mean, you've got the YouTube channel, which I do
Yeah,
want to talk about if you're okay. I mean, I want to.
absolutely.
That's part of your origin story.
Yeah.
I've never actually asked you like how you even got into all this. How did you get into the novel? Kind of came as a consequence of other things you were doing. I sense you can correct me if I'm wrong, but how
Well,
did you?
yeah, I think the novel really came out of the fact that I wanted to write something for a long time, but
Yeah,
I have to say, there's communities on YouTube who do what I do, they make the kind of content that I do. And people are increasingly frustrated with where storytelling has gone in
yeah,
mainstream, especially Hollywood. And so I wrote a book. I think if I had the money, I would have made a film, but wrote a book because I don't have
yeah,
the money to make a film. But so when people ask, what are your literary influences, there aren't really that many. I'm primarily a movie watcher and TV show watcher. So when I'm writing something, I'm writing as like it's something cinematic right in my mind. But I'd been a film reviewer for a few years on YouTube and had done a little bit of that with my previous channel. Um, so I've been on YouTube since about 2006, and Computing Forever was a technology channel. I used to do reviews of tech products,
yeah,
so forth. But there was always like some pop culture influences there. And about, I think it was 2016, I set up the Dave Cullen show, and I've been doing that ever since. Um, so I think really the frustration that a lot of us have had, I've got a series now on the channel. I've said this many times, is like we have to kind of be the change that we want to see.
yeah,
You're not happy with where entertainment is going, then maybe it's time that we actually, I don't know, made our own, right? I'm
right.
encouraging people to make their own video games if they can, make their own movies, make their own web series, and of course write their own books. And so there is there you know there I mean you've been part of similar
Yeah,
literary communities now for a while, and helped people in that respect. So it is happening, and it's funny because I was talking to a friend about this the other day, that there's a number of people who would be long-standing content creators on YouTube, and so their bread and butter has been making videos, but they started to migrate into maybe doing social or political or pop culture commentary on the likes of Substack as well. So they're
yeah, yeah,
blogging. So they're honing their craft, maybe without even realizing it by writing. And there's so many of my friends who have told them, look, you've got these great Substacks, these fantastic articles. Can you please just make a compendium, take these essays and put them into a book, and that's the beginning of the self-publishing, right?
yeah,
Because it's very important. I'm very much a physical media kind of guy. Now, I get it, like people love their ebooks and all that. I totally respect that, but at the end of the day, we don't know where all this internet thing is going to go long term. And
yeah.
I don't know, like at the end of the day, if the lights go out and we have we have the apocalypse, I want to know that, thousands
Yeah,
of my
I do kind of feel like we're contributing to a sort of digital library of Alexandria. Like, eventually it's going to all come burning to the ground.
Well, you hopefully not, but at the bare minimum, there is like it's a very I find it a very different experience reading a physical book
Yeah.
than reading off of even the best of e-readers that look physically identical to. It's extraordinary that they can make a screen look like an actual printed page.
Yeah.
But I just prefer the tactile thing of a book. And then of course I've learned in this experience that firstly, it's very different to 10 years ago. Um, Back then, there were more paperback sales than ebook sales. Now it's the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then there are some people who only read hardbacks. So that's another niche, right? They only want the hardback, which is amazing. And then there's another group of people increasingly who only want to listen to the audiobook.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of schools of thought as to why the audiobooks have exploded. It's a very different form of consuming the content because you are literally just passively consuming it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're reading a book, you're more of an active participant. You're having to make the words, visualize them and hear them in your head. So whereas you're just listening, it's a very different thing. I'm not saying like one is better or worse, but um, it is. There's a lot of people, and I don't know. Maybe people have busy lives. Maybe it's attention spans because of the internet or social media or something.
Yeah.
Um, it could be a lot of things, but the audiobooks, incidentally, the audiobook is available on Spotify Premium and it should be on Audible at some point, but Audible has a bunch of technical checks apparently that it
Yeah.
rigorously go through.
Yeah.
So
They,
yeah.
yeah. It's funny. I have books that are still exclusive to Audible for some reason. They're past their point where I can take them out. I need to go ahead and just take them out and take those wide. Uh, but yeah, you're doing it the right way. And the way you're going about it is the right way. You went through Find a Way, right? With
Yeah, so
yeah,
what I did was the first thing I'd watched a lot of very good content creators, including your own shows. But there was a lot of self-published. I wish I could remember half their names now, but you probably know a lot of them, and there's some that have some pretty big channels
yeah,
on YouTube. And the advice that I heard quite consistently was not to just go with Amazon KDP
right,
for a number of reasons. I mean, you need to be on Amazon. Of course, your book needs to be there, both in ebook and paperback. But what I did with the advice that I followed was not to click that expanded distribution button on Amazon.
right,
That that was for Ingram Spark, right? Now,
yeah,
so what I did was so with Ingram, I wanted the option, whether it happens or not, I wanted the option of being able to get into the Ingram catalog with a view towards maybe, if possible, getting the book into bookstores, at least that they could order it if they so wanted, if there was a demand. And that would be great. Uh, it's not really something you can do with Amazon. Bookstores and libraries don't typically want to buy from Amazon
right,
because competitor and they don't get the refunds and everything else. So Ingram offers them that latitude. And in addition, Ingram will do the expanded distribution onto all the other online and offline platforms and everything. So that's great. My issue that I found with it with Ingram, not only is their system like not particularly intuitive to use, although it is quite detailed and everything, I respect that, but they didn't provide. They wanted me to buy another ISBN for the ebook, which was weird because
that's
usually,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, ebooks don't need ISBNs. And so I was like, but they do provide free ISBNs if you're in America, but I'm not. So I said, okay, the ebook will be on Amazon. The paperback is over there, but I also want an Ingram paperback. So uh, the hopefully in the next few days, the Ingram paperback will be there, so the bookstores can get it. And then I went over to your old alma mater,
yeah,
Draft to Digital.
that's right.
And Draft to Digital was fantastic. I genuinely cannot say enough good things about that system because it was the easiest one to physically upload everything, get everything set up, and then you get these emails where one by one it's telling you all the platforms that your book has been distributed on, which is brilliant. It's on dozens of them now at this stage. So the ebook will be there. So I'm rambling on and on and on. I'm finally getting to talk to somebody about this whole process. So the ebook is being distributed through Draft to Digital. So when you search for the book now, it's just on a gazillion platforms. If
Right.
you look for my name on the book on Google, and it's very impressive how quickly that ended up that way. So the long and story short is make use of as many of these platforms as possible. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket, because all these different systems have benefits and
Yeah.
drawbacks and benefits, and a lot of the benefits on one negate the negatives on the other, and so forth. So it's great to learn all of them, and to learn about the advantages that you can get as an author.
Yeah, and there's a lot it's really kind of cool and maybe a little disappointing that there are so many options now compared to when I started, where it was like, it wasn't called KDP then, it was called something else, but I had CreateSpace, Amazon, and I think Smashwords, which is was a competitor of Draft Digitals, and they bought it in 2020 and acquired it. And that was pretty much it. And it was not an easy landscape. And when Draft Digital came along, it made things a lot easier for me. But like now, everybody's spoiled for choices. There's like a dozen competitors to Draft Digital. Everyone's got different marketplaces. So many options.
Yeah, I still think Amazon. Yeah, they have they've still got a bit of what I use the word monopoly. Would that be fair
Yeah,
in terms
that's
of
fair. Yeah,
definitely yeah, definitely in terms of that's the first place that everybody thinks of more than
yeah,
anywhere else, of
yeah,
course. Um, but you're never gonna really be able to with the level the speed, first of all, but also the pricing
yeah.
for print. You just can't really compete with that. And generally speaking, there are very few that compete well on that level. They offer probably the best royal. Well, actually, no. I would say in terms of royalties, I still think it's probably Lulu that
Hmm.
offer the most
Yeah.
competitive, but their printing cost is that bit higher. Um, but then again, their quality is higher, and the more you get into the nitty gritty, you go, yeah, I wouldn't mind having a cover that doesn't quite bow like that. I wouldn't sit down and
Yeah.
so you look at all
There's a
these,
certain level of MVP though, the minimal
yeah,
viable product kind of thing, that I think that we as indies have to embrace at least until things, take off. Uh, because you could throw money at this. You can throw a ton of money at getting, because you could go through. I've shared with you some of the sources out there to do like specialty hardcovers with like sprayed edges and gold foil and all that. But at the end of the day, what's your goal? If you just want some souvenirs to hand out to people, if people are clamoring for it, do it. But if you can't, then go with the MVP version.
well, it's something you said to me before, which is quite surprised me, which is that yeah, some people are and always will be paperback readers, but given the sheer disparity percentage wise between ebook and paperback, it'd be like typically speaking, over the course of a month, you can draw an average. You can go, it's about 64%.
Yeah.
So from what I can see now, and that's just over the course of really a week that I can see it, and you can really draw a conclusion there that the vast majority of people are reading on some sort of device rather than reading a paperback. And I wonder, is that going to shrink more? Is it for the paperback? Is that going to, or is it going to increase, or is it going to stay the same? But it certainly wasn't like that even 10, 15 years ago, you know.
No.
So that's something else to consider. You're when you're writing a when you're writing a book and you're publishing, you're effectively making several different products because you've got a different form factor with a different set of expectations to it, and you've got a different price, most likely.
Right.
Uh, an
And those are
ebook,
all different markets.
yeah, all different markets as
Yeah.
well. So but the audiobook thing is most interesting because there's a huge demand for that now. And so, I mean, is the audiobook going to be the next ebook? Is that where we could be headed now?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, people have been kind of hinting at that for a while, but audiobook's been around for a while. The major disruptor in that space right now is Spotify. Uh, and they've kind of knocked ACX or Audible off its throne a little, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the next ebook. What I think it is a continuation of what it already was, which is there's a bulk of people out there who prefer having the convenience of being of not having to, you know, have something that requires all their attention. They can listen to it while they drive, while they mow the lawn, whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah. And it's great. I mean, I found that service, Find a Way, I thought it was going to be extremely difficult to do. It was just once I had, again, there's an irony here. The book
yeah,
is about announcing AI, right? And yet I
right.
use freaking AI for the voice, right? There's no way, like, there's no way I could read this
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not mess up on almost every sentence because I do. Like, I edit the crap out of my videos, so I cut out all the errors and everything. But people wanted me to do. Some people were disappointed that it wasn't my voice,
yeah.
but I was like, the voice that is there is really good. I kind of would have cringed if I was listening to my
I
own
think it
voice.
might have been a little disjointing too because you very clearly are not American, and so you have these characters who are in America. It might have I don't know. I have this thing about like I want to I want to hear the voice for the region that the book is set in, but
Yes,
but that could
yes.
just be me. I don't know. But
Well, as well as that, the audiobooks are becoming more sophisticated, let's be honest, because
yeah.
some of them, and very quickly, a lot of the audiobooks that are out there, including maybe even the one that I made, are going to date because
Oh
people
yeah.
are going to have even more expectations. I mean, one of the things that wasn't, we talked about this before, I sound like George Lucas now. We talked about this before. One of the things we talked about before the show was I did think about having a different voice for all the characters,
Yeah.
and that's something I might get back to at some point. Um, but it was actually going to end up being kind of costly in terms of time and everything, and so I said no, I'm not going to do that. And of course, these AI systems you have to buy like credits, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, look, I'll just do it. What is everybody else doing? They use typically it's one voice to read everything. You got the narrator does all the characters, it's fine, and it was a nice voice, and it for some weird way it somehow emotes, which was extraordinary. So it seems to know when a character is like upset or frustrated. It's amazing actually. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
quite extraordinary. And so I said, okay, we'll do that. But I've listened to a few audiobooks now. There was Agatha Christie's one of the Agatha Christie ones. It might have been Death on the Nile, or it might have been um I can't remember which one it was. But I was listening to this and I was going, this is amazing. They've got background, they've got music, they've got Foley, all
Yeah.
the sound, they've got all different characters. And it wasn't, you could tell it wasn't AI, it was actually actors in like booths, all
Yeah.
probably, whether they were acting side by side or not at the time. But it was just like this is like I remember listening to an audio book that was on, it was actually on vinyl when I was a child.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock.
Yeah.
I actually found the recording recently. Someone put it on YouTube, but that was the first time I'd listened to an audiobook, and it had all the sound effects and all different characters and everything. And it was like that's probably where they're going to evolve to, I think. I think
I
they're
think
I
so.
think they're going to get that's going to be like the standard, and I think people are going to expect that. And if that's not your audiobook, they're not going to be interested.
Well, I think it's just like there's a market for paperback, a market for hardcover, a market for audio. There's a market for different versions of audio. So that's the
Mhm.
good news. It's like you could come back later, do a full-on audio production of that thing, and you'd be opening a new market. And you're not cannibalizing the existing market. Because some people like me, I don't want to hear a radio drama. I just want you to read the book to me in a reasonably good voice. So I don't think you're not shutting anything down. I mean, you've still got the opportunity.
You
Uh,
you just made me think, Kevin, where we could be going in 20 years from now. You know what's going to happen. So you're going to have your ebooks, you're going to have your paperbacks,
yeah,
you're going to have your audiobooks and everything. You're going to have your audiobook radio dramas.
yeah,
And then people are going to say, "So Kevin, when's the AI movie
When's the
video.
Neuralink version coming out?
So what there's going to be is they're going to ask for the AI to go and just like make a movie out of your book, and it's going to
Yeah.
go off and do it, and just give me that one. So I have a feeling we could be we may not be that far away.
The interactive holodeck version that
Yes.
Jean-Luc Picard walks into. Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed.
Uh, well, we're gonna have to wrap up. I dragged you over, but I appreciate you hanging out with me,
No,
man.
not a problem at all.
Uh, People can find the book right now. It's available for sale. There'll be a link in the show notes, of course, but is there someplace online you want to send people to find you and books and etc.?
Yeah, so the you've got the links for the some people do sometimes ask, is it available anywhere other than Amazon? It is. It's on all the others that you can probably think of, including Barnes and Noble and Apple iBooks and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you can find me over on the Dave Cullen Show on YouTube as well. That's probably the best place to find me.
I do recommend that show. In fact, I need to get a cartoon avatar from you to use for the show art for this episode. Special guest, Cartoon Dave. So I'm sad we're out of time because I was going to ask you about that too. I'll talk to you off air. Everyone else can just miss out on that conversation.
No problem. No problem. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being on, my friend. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm excited about the book. I can't wait to see where it goes from here and what you do with it. So, everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Without you, it'd just be two guys with beards having a conversation. We might as well just be drinking in a pub somewhere. But you're here, and I appreciate that. Now, stick around because the note at the end is coming up, and you don't want to miss that. So, see you soon. You know, I've always believed life's too short for boring stories. So I write the kind of books I'd want to read. Action-packed, fast-paced fiction. Adventure stories with characters you'll wish you could hang out with. And twists you'll never see coming. From ancient mysteries to modern-day thrills, my books take you on a wild ride. And trust me, I've got plenty of rides to choose from. So if you're ready to escape into a world of danger, discovery, and intrigue, it's here waiting. Find your adventure at kevintumlinson.com/books. Not responsible for sleepless nights. Well, here we are at a note at the end. Glad that you stuck through the interview. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dave Cullen. Dave's a great guy. I've spent a lot of time chatting with him over the past couple of months, 2 or 3 months now, as he got his book ready for launch, as he launched the book, and he'll pop up every now and then and just let me know how things are going. It's interesting that it hit #1 on religious persecution of all categories. But hey, #1 is #1. You're a #1 Amazon bestseller now. So embrace that. And that's something, that's the kind of thing I think it's something worth talking about, actually. I did another interview with someone for the Writers Inc. podcast who is a marketing and PR expert. And there's a whole conversation there, and I'll be recording that episode with the team here in probably an hour or so as of the recording of this episode. But there's this issue we have sometimes about sort of tooting our own horn, especially when we're creatives. We feel like that's just not right. Like, you feel icky about it. You feel like maybe you are bragging, or maybe you're just being, insufferable. The thing is, though, this is something I've heard others say. Who was the author of Eat, Pray, Love? For some reason, her name has popped right out of my head. Elizabeth Gilbert. I heard her say something one time. I've heard others say this too. And the idea is that, when you've created something that you honestly believe belongs in the world, when you've created something that can inspire or as my mission statement puts it, to inform, inspire, educate, or entertain. When you've created something like that, you owe it to the world to let them know that that exists. That's not just marketing for your own benefit. That's marketing for the benefit of humanity. So you have an obligation, I think, because you felt compelled enough. Now here's where things can get a little woo, and you know me, I'm a Christian above all else, and I'm quite spiritual actually. Believe that there's a spiritual component to every aspect of our lives. I think that there is that spirit within us. Now in the Christian faith, that's the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of discernment. But even if you're not an adherent to the Christian faith, like every major faith and religion out there talks about being one with God, being a part of the universe, being one with the universe, that sort of thing. I think that there's a piece of us, an eternal piece of us that, for lack of a better way to phrase it, that is nudging things in the world, nudging things in the universe through our creative action. I think creativity, creative impulse is a part of the language of the universe. And I feel like when we get that creative impulse to make anything, to write a book, to create a podcast, to do leathercraft, to create artwork with pen and paper or a paintbrush, whenever we get that is the universe, that is the soul of creation speaking through us and to us and then through us. I think that it's all about adding to the energy of that creative universe. And that's how we benefit the world around us. That's how we touch the souls of others. That's how we, create a better world, a better version of the world, through creating a better version of our lives, through being open to expressing what that soul, what that spirit within us is trying to express. That's how we serve. In Christian parlance, it's how we serve God. It's in other religions or other philosophies, it's how we serve. It's how we serve our fellow man. It's how we serve the universe itself. It's how we serve ourselves. And so to ignore that, I think if there can be said to be sin, I think that's what it is. There's a scripture that talks about the only unforgivable sin is to deny the Holy Spirit. And there's a lot of interpretations about what that means. And my interpretation is like you can't really deny it until you've denied it to the very end. Like once your life is over, if you've pushed out that Holy Spirit throughout, then you've officially denied it. But throughout your life, you get lots of opportunities where you maybe momentarily deny it, but you end up coming back around because that soul has to speak. It has to propagate itself through what you create. That's my take. It's a little out there, and I'm speaking off the cuff, so maybe none of that made any sense. But if it made sense to you, let me know. Say something in the comments of the video on YouTube, or if you are listening on the podcast, reach out to me. You can go to my website, by the way, kevintumlinson.com, and there's a contact button there. If you ever want to reach me for any reason, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can send an email directly to my inbox. But otherwise, I hope you're doing all the things. Subscribing and sharing and commenting. Those are all very important. And that's part of the creative output. That's part of the process of creative output, actually, isn't it? I mean, I'm a writer. I'm going to write. I don't just write books, but I write Substack posts. I write emails. I write, text messages. All the things that I create are not just meant to make me a living, but meant to express that deeper part of me. And so it's very important. It's important work. I spent yesterday here's where I'm kind of going back and forth, because I have I have a compulsion to create things, but I also feel guilt when I'm creating something, but I'm not creating the other thing. So like yesterday, when I could have been working on the book that I'm working on, I spent the entire day editing a video for a new project that I have. And so I felt this guilt over that all day. And then it turned out to be a ton more work than I was prepared for. So, I got a little frustrated and a little run down over it and kind of tired, And there's this voice that kind of comes up. You call it a voice because what else can you call it? But there's this compulsion. I don't know, this nagging thing in the back of your head or in your gut. That's where I feel it. That says, this isn't worth it. Maybe you should scrap this, start over. Maybe you should scrap this and leave it. No one knows about this project. You haven't promised anything. You don't owe it to anybody. That's where I think, that's what's wrong. That's wrong. I had the compulsion to create this thing, and I was excited about it, and pieces of it went very smoothly, went very well, very easy. But when the creativity got hard, I had this notion that maybe I should walk from it. I think that happens to a lot of us. Now, when it comes to marketing, I bill myself as a marketing person, but the truth is, I'll be honest with you. I'll be frank. I hate marketing. I hate what people think of as marketing. I hate doing the things that when people talk about marketing, this is what they're talking about. I'm not a data-driven guy. I'm not an A/B tester. I'm none of those things. I don't like it. It doesn't fit well, click well with me. But I've come to realize that there's more to marketing than that. And those things can be important, but they don't have to be important to you. Those things can be useful tools, but just because a hammer is a useful tool doesn't mean you have to use a hammer every time you approach a problem, right? Like if I'm going to put a picture on the wall, a nail might do the job, but a screw could do the job just as well. So you pick the tools that are best for the task at hand, but you have to be open to the fact that the same job can be done with multiple tools. For me, marketing comes down to connecting with an audience. Content is something I enjoy doing, and so I'm creating a lot of content. Does it move the needle? Sometimes, I don't know. It's better for me than trying to spend a bunch of money and time on ads, I think. Testing and retesting. Maybe I'd be further along. Maybe I'd be far more effective. And sometimes I have played around with that, and sometimes I feel that creative spark in that. And so maybe it just comes down to finding how to be creative in that. That's fair, right? So, these are the things I think about. I'm hoping maybe I can inspire you to think about it too. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. But, when it comes to marketing, we owe the world, we owe ourselves, we owe God, we owe the universe, we owe that essence out there, the act of telling people about what we've created. Otherwise, why create it? Sometimes you just create things for yourself. Sometimes you just have this quiet moment and you've done a little drawing, you've written a story or whatever, and it's not for anybody but you and your creator. I actually did this once several years ago. Kara and I were renting an apartment in Pearland, Texas, and next to the apartment was this little park with a walking path around ostensibly a pond, and man-made pond. And I took a walk one day and got inspired, and I started to think of this story, and I started to tell the story in my head, and realized eventually I'm telling this story to God. This is a story that I'm crafting from my Father, my Creator. And eventually I came to a park bench that overlooked the water, and I sat on this park bench and I told the whole rest of the story to God. I remember vaguely what that story was, but I never wrote it down. I never dictated it to record it or anything. I didn't record it in any way whatsoever. But it was a complete story, beginning, middle, and end. It was a short story, and it was meaningful. It was powerful. And, I felt moved by the story itself. And that practice, that exercise, it changed something in me to do that. That was me creating for the sake of creating and giving that story to an audience of one. Because it's not even my stories. I don't remember it. Like, I remember bits and pieces of it, but it was like I just overheard it. But I know that it's out there. I know that it exists. I know that my God has that story, and that story, I believe, is meaningful to God. I believe. Whether that's true or not, we will see one day when eternity comes calling, and I journey into the kingdom. That's the way I see it. And however you see it, I still say sometimes creating for the act of creating is what it's all about. But when you are creating, when the impulse to create comes with that sense of obligation to share it with someone, with the world, that obligation includes telling people about it. So that's it. That's the end of this note at the end. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it met the 4 tenets of my mission statement. I hope it informed, inspired, educated, and entertained you. And I hope it blessed you. And if it did, make sure you bless others with a link to this show. Make sure you go on social media, email, go to your friends, and share this episode, however you're encountering it. I'm trying to push everybody to YouTube, but I recognize that that's not the most convenient way for some people to consume the show. So I'm happy to have the audio version still out there, and I'm glad that you are tuning in. Many more people tune in for the show on audio than YouTube. I think I'm trying to edge up past 500 subscribers on YouTube because it's very low, but that's mostly because it's, I started the whole thing kind of late, and most people encountered the show first on audio. So having a YouTube component to the show is kind of relatively new, but I like how it's going. I mean, I think it could become something. I've got other plans for YouTube. I got something else I'm working on. We'll see. I've kind of got to figure some things out, but I did some stuff. Yeah, this is the thing I was talking about, really. But I did some stuff yesterday that was over the past 2 or 3 days. I've been working on this. It's got me very excited about it. But there's some problems I need to figure out. But once I've got them figured out, I'm going to run. I've kind of tested this with a few folks in my immediate circle, and everyone's excited about it and loves the idea of it. So I can't wait to share that with you. And you will be among the first to hear when it happens. But anyway, as we wrap up, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and click the little bell for notifications. And make sure you comment in the comments on YouTube, because that helps YouTube know that you're interacting, you're engaged. Basically, when you like and share and subscribe and comment and all that stuff on YouTube, YouTube says, oh, people like you like content like this, and so they share it with other people. So you're helping me grow the channel and this show. So I appreciate that. I'm really grateful for that. So thank you again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Dave Cullen. Hope you go over and like, share, and subscribe on his channel as well. And God bless you. Take care of yourselves. Go out and create some things that are just for you and your creator, but then also for the world and impact the world. I'm rooting for you. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you all next time.
Wordslinger.